I've been watching it happen for years and I can't keep quiet anymore. The cracks are everywhere. You walk down the streets, go to work, swipe your credit card, and you think everything is fine. But it isn't. I see it every day. Small businesses shutting their doors, people struggling to pay rent, and families cutting corners just to survive. The system we trusted is showing its true colors, and it's falling apart quietly, piece by piece. The news won't tell you this. Social media distracts you with trends and memes. Most people walk around blind, pretending nothing's wrong, while the foundation beneath them is crumbling. I've personally seen the effects firsthand. I watched a friend of mine, someone I grew up with, lose everything when his company went bankrupt overnight. One day, he had a stable income, health insurance, a 401k. The next, none of it existed. And the scariest part? He wasn't alone. Around me, I see more people living paycheck to paycheck than ever before. I see communities losing access to basic services. I see governments and corporations teetering under their own weight. Yet somehow, the average person doesn't notice. They scroll through their phones, binge watch the latest shows, complain about minor inconveniences, all while ignoring the widening cracks under their feet. The signs are everywhere if you know where to look. Inflation is eating away at savings. Housing markets are becoming unaffordable. Student debt is crushing entire generations. Pension plans are underfunded, banks are overleveraged, and governments are borrowing money they can never repay. You might be thinking this is just another financial cycle, but it isn't. This is the slow unraveling of the system itself. And I can tell you from experience, once the cracks reach a certain point, everything collapses faster than anyone expects. What most people don't get is that the collapse isn't dramatic at first. It's subtle, sneaky, almost invisible. It's in the lines at the grocery store that are getting longer, in the rising cost of everything, in the layoffs that no one reports. It's in the growing tension you feel when you try to plan your future, and yet the majority ignore it. They shrug, saying, "It'll be fine. It always bounces back." I've learned the hard way that denial is the most dangerous thing in a fragile system. I'm telling you now because I can't stand by while people continue walking blind. The cracks are everywhere, and pretending they're not will not make them disappear. I've seen the first dominoes fall, and once they start, there's no stopping the chain reaction. The system is fragile, and if you don't recognize it now, you'll be caught off guard when it collapses. I've been watching the warning signs, documenting them, preparing myself, and I want you to start paying attention before it's too late. Because if you wait until everyone else panics, you'll wish you had seen the cracks when they first appeared. I don't blame people for not seeing it. I used to be one of them. I went through life assuming the system was unshakable, trusting the news, my paycheck, the promises of the government. But the truth hit me hard. People don't see the collapse because the world doesn't want them to. The media distracts you. Social platforms numb you. Every advertisement, every viral video, every celebrity scandal keeps your mind busy while the foundations crumble. They don't want you thinking about what's really happening because if you do, you might start asking questions they can't answer. Psychology plays a huge role in this ignorance. Humans are wired to seek comfort, to follow routines, to trust authority figures. Admitting that the system is failing is terrifying. Most people can't handle the cognitive dissonance. It's easier to scroll, to binge, to complain about the weather than to face the truth. I've tried talking to people, warning them, showing them evidence. Most laugh it off. Some get angry. A few listen. But even then, the fear is too overwhelming, and they retreat back into their comfortable illusions. I remember sitting with a colleague showing him charts of rising debt, inflation trends, and corporate bankruptcies, and he just shrugged. "It'll all sort itself out," he said. "That's what I mean. People are trained to ignore reality. Governments, corporations, even schools condition you to believe the world is stable and secure. And when cracks appear, most people assume they're temporary glitches rather than the first signs of a collapse. Propaganda is everywhere. Every day, the news frames disasters as isolated events, social media makes you obsess over distractions, and influencers make you believe that happiness is tied to buying things. Meanwhile, the system erodes silently beneath you. People don't see it because they're busy living in a curated illusion, and the more urgent the warning, the more they resist. I've felt the frustration, trying to wake people up. I've realized that most will never see it until it's too late, until the dominoes fall and there's no safety net left. I've seen it in my own family, loved ones shrugging off warnings, insisting the system is fine, trusting it blindly. I've watched their complacency put them at risk, and I know it's a pattern repeated millions of times across the world. Most people simply cannot, or will not, see the collapse until it's hitting them directly. That's why I'm talking to you now. I'm not here to comfort you. I'm here to shake you awake, to make you question everything you've assumed to be safe. Because the truth is this: the system is fragile, and its failures are inevitable. Ignorance won't save you. Denial won't protect you. Only awareness, only preparation, only action can give you a chance to survive and maybe even thrive when the cracks finally turn into a chasm. And if you don't start paying attention now, you'll be just another victim, left wondering how you didn't see it coming while the world fell apart around you. I used to believe that money was stable. I thought if I worked hard, saved diligently, and invested wisely, I could rely on it to secure my future. But that illusion shattered, and I learned the hard way that money, real, tangible wealth, is fragile, manipulated, and controlled by forces most people never see. The system is broken. Inflation eats away at savings faster than most realize. Governments print money they don't have, borrowing endlessly, and yet people continue to trust the very system that's designed to fail them. I've watched friends and family lose fortunes overnight, not because they were careless, but because the system was rigged against them. One friend had a healthy retirement account, decades of careful investment. In a single market crash, most of it evaporated. I remember sitting across from him, seeing the panic in his eyes, realizing that no amount of planning can fully protect you from a system built to benefit insiders. Banks, corporations, and governments are all intertwined, and when the walls start cracking, ordinary people are the first to fall. Debt is another weapon of control. Mortgages, credit cards, student loans, they trap people into lifetimes of obligations while the value of their money diminishes. I've lived it myself, paying off student loans while the cost of living rises, watching my paycheck lose value year after year. And most people don't notice. They assume that their salary increasing slightly each year compensates for inflation. It doesn't, not even close. The system silently erodes your purchasing power while you're distracted by small gains and reassured by financial pundits. And it's not just personal wealth. Entire currencies are fragile. Countries that were considered stable can collapse financially in the blink of an eye. I've studied cases where national economies implode, leaving citizens scrambling for survival. These aren't isolated incidents, they're warnings loud and clear about the fragility of our global financial system. Yet most people continue to believe that money is safe, that banks are trustworthy, that wealth is secure if you just follow the rules. I realized I had to think differently. I had to see money not as security, but as a tool, and one that could fail me at any moment. That's why I started exploring alternatives: tangible assets, precious metals, digital currencies, and other investments that aren't directly tied to collapsing institutions. I've been learning, experimenting, and protecting myself in ways that most people dismiss as risky or unconventional. But here's the truth. In a broken system, conventional thinking is what gets you crushed. I want you to understand this. The money you hold, the accounts you trust, the paycheck you rely on, they are not as secure as you believe. The cracks are deep, the rules are rigged, and the collapse is closer than most realize. The only way to survive, and even thrive, is to take responsibility for your own wealth, understand the fragility of the system, and diversify in ways that the system cannot touch. This isn't paranoia, it's preparation, and if you don't start now, you may find yourself powerless when the next wave hits. I believed in the security of a traditional career once. I thought if I worked hard, followed the path, climbed the corporate ladder, I'd be safe. I was wrong. The truth hit me when I saw colleagues being laid off without warning, companies downsizing overnight, and entire industries collapsing while employees clung to the illusion of stability. The system sells you a lie, that a steady job guarantees security. It doesn't, not anymore. I've witnessed it firsthand. One day, a close friend of mine had a six-figure salary, benefits, and promises of promotion. The next week, the company announced a massive layoff, and he was gone. Just like that. No warning, no safety net, nothing. He had played by all the rules, worked tirelessly, and trusted the system. But the system didn't care. And this isn't rare. I see it happen every day. Employees replaced by cheaper labor, automation, or cost-cutting measures. The ground beneath the so-called secure career is disappearing faster than most can react. The gig economy makes it worse. I've tried the conventional route and the freelance path. The so-called freedom of independent work comes with instability, but at least you're in control. Most people don't realize that reliance on a single employer, a single paycheck, is dangerous. Automation and AI are already replacing jobs we thought were safe. Retail, transportation, even professional services. Nothing is immune. I've had to adapt, learn new skills, and diversify my income streams just to stay ahead. What I've learned is that security isn't found in a job. It's built in your mindset, your flexibility, and your ability to adapt. I've shifted my thinking completely. I focus on creating multiple streams of income, investing in skills that are resistant to automation, and building networks that give me options if one path disappears. It's uncomfortable at first, but freedom and independence are worth far more than the illusion of stability. I've also seen people resist this truth. They cling to their jobs as if faith alone will protect them, ignoring the warning signs, and then they panic when layoffs hit. I refuse to be one of those people. I've taken control of my career, my skills, and my financial future. I constantly ask myself, if everything I rely on disappears tomorrow, what would I do? That question keeps me sharp, keeps me prepared, and keeps me one step ahead of collapse. This is why I'm sharing this with you. Traditional careers are failing, and most people don't see it. But if you wake up, adapt your mindset, and take personal responsibility, you can navigate this collapse rather than be crushed by it. The path to security isn't a paycheck, it's autonomy, resilience, and preparation. I've started walking that path, and every day I see how fragile the old system truly is. You have to start now before it's too late. I've been watching it unfold for years, and it's undeniable. Technology is no longer just a tool, it's becoming the system itself. The digital takeover is real, and most people don't even notice. Every app you use, every device you own, every platform you scroll through is a thread in a web of control. AI, automation, and surveillance technologies are reshaping society in ways that most people can't see or refuse to see. I've felt the impact personally, and let me tell you, it's unsettling. I remember when my workplace introduced automated systems that replaced roles I thought were secure. Colleagues who had spent decades in their positions suddenly found themselves obsolete. Machines don't negotiate, they don't rest, and they don't consider loyalty. I saw firsthand how technology could destabilize entire communities overnight. And it's not just jobs, our personal freedoms are at stake too. Surveillance cameras, data tracking, and algorithmic control mean that almost every move we make is recorded, analyzed, and used to predict our behavior. It's subtle, it's pervasive, and most people barely notice. Social media and digital platforms are another part of the takeover. I've watched people become addicted to the dopamine hits of notifications, scrolling endlessly while the system quietly reshapes opinions, influences decisions, and even manipulates markets. Governments and corporations have access to data on an unimaginable scale. They know where you go, what you buy, and what you think. And if you believe it's just harmless convenience, I've got news for you. It isn't. Your freedom, your independence, and your ability to make autonomous decisions are under threat. I've also experienced the benefits of technology, but I can't ignore the risks. I've seen friends make fortunes with digital innovation, but I've seen others lose everything because the platforms they trusted changed policies overnight or were hacked. That's the lesson I learned. Technology can empower, but it can also enslave. The key is understanding it, controlling it, and using it strategically rather than passively. This is why preparation matters. The digital age is unavoidable, and trying to escape it entirely is futile. But you can adapt. You can use technology on your terms rather than letting it dictate your life. Learning digital skills, securing your data, understanding cryptocurrencies, and building assets in ways that can't be wiped out by a single policy change, these are the steps I've taken. The future will be digital, but the ones who survive it will be those who control their digital presence and protect their independence. I'm telling you this because I've lived the disruption, and I know it's only getting worse. Technology will continue to reshape the economy, the job market, and the very way we live. But if you start preparing now, if you understand the power and danger of this digital takeover, you can carve out freedom in a world designed to limit it. I'm doing it, step by step, and I can tell you, awareness is the first weapon, action is the second, and control is the ultimate shield. After seeing how fragile both money and jobs are, I realized one fundamental truth. If you don't own what they can't take away, you're at the mercy of a system that's rigged to fail you. Tangible assets, real property, digital assets, they're not just investments, they're survival tools. I've spent years figuring out which forms of wealth actually protect freedom, and I've applied these lessons to my own life. I started small. I invested in physical assets, gold, silver, land. I wanted something the system couldn't wipe out with a keystroke or a policy change. I watched friends pour everything into bank accounts or stocks tied to unstable corporations, and I saw them lose it all. One neighbor, confident in his 401k, watched it plummet during a market crash and had no plan B. Meanwhile, those who had tangible assets, diversified investments, and alternative stores of value weathered the storm. That's when I understood ownership is power. Digital assets became my next focus. Cryptocurrencies, decentralized finance, and blockchain-backed tools offer a level of control that banks and governments can't override if you know what you're doing. I've built portfolios that balance security and risk, ensuring that even if the traditional financial system collapses, I retain options. I've seen others do the same, securing wealth in ways that seem invisible to the average person. And it's not magic, it's discipline, knowledge, and foresight. But it's more than money. Ownership extends to skills, knowledge, and independence. I've invested in myself, learning skills that automation can't replicate and building networks that provide options when the system fails. Control over these assets, physical, digital, and personal, is what separates those who survive from those who are crushed when collapse hits. I've also learned that mindset matters as much as strategy. You can have gold, land, and crypto, but if you wait for permission, rely on others to protect you, or ignore risks, those assets won't save you. I've had to train myself to think like a strategist, not a consumer. Every investment, every skill, every choice I make is designed to protect my autonomy and minimize vulnerability. This approach isn't theoretical, it's practical. I've helped friends and family begin securing assets, learning digital tools, and taking ownership of their future. Watching them transform their thinking is proof that ownership creates freedom. And here's the key lesson. The system can fail, collapse, or manipulate, but assets you control that they can't take away are your anchor in the storm. I want you to see it like I do. The world is changing, collapsing in some ways, but survival isn't random. It's a game of preparation, foresight, and control. Own what they can't take, control what they can't manipulate, and build a mindset that can adapt to any crisis. That's how I've turned fear into strategy, instability into opportunity, and fragility into resilience. And if you start doing the same, you'll find that even in chaos, freedom is possible. I'll be honest with you, I didn't start this journey fully aware. I went through years of denial, thinking the system would always support me. I relied on stability that didn't exist, comfort that was temporary, and safety nets that were illusions. Fear and complacency are the greatest chains people wear. I used to be one of them, waiting for someone else to solve problems I hadn't even noticed. That changed when I finally woke up and realized that no one was coming to save me. I had to take responsibility for my own survival. The first step in my transformation was awareness. I started observing the world critically, questioning everything I had taken for granted: money, jobs, media, authority. I realized that while most people slept, I had a choice: adapt or be consumed. That realization was terrifying, but it was necessary. Once fear became awareness instead of paralysis, I could act. The mindset shift isn't about optimism, it's about clarity, discipline, and action. Daily habits became my foundation. I track the economy, study trends, diversify my income, and continuously improve my skills. I surround myself with information, not distractions. I limit things that numb my mind and focus on what empowers me. I wake up early, plan my day with intention, and invest time in skills that technology can't replace. Discipline isn't glamorous, but it's the only thing that shields you from collapse. Thinking patterns are equally important. I've trained myself to anticipate problems before they appear, to question convenient narratives, and to accept discomfort as a catalyst for growth. I stopped waiting for perfect conditions and started creating options for myself, even in uncertainty. This mindset doesn't just prepare me financially, it prepares me mentally, emotionally, and strategically. Fear no longer controls me. Preparedness does. Here's the step-by-step advice I follow, and I recommend you do the same. Observe your environment critically. Look for cracks others ignore. Take responsibility for your own security, financial, personal, and digital. Build skills that make you independent, adaptable, and resilient. Form habits of discipline. Plan, act, review, repeat. Accept that discomfort is part of growth, and act despite fear. I can't stress enough. Action before collapse is not optional, it's urgent. Every day you delay awareness and preparation, the system edges closer to instability, and the consequences grow. I've seen too many people paralyzed by denial, clinging to illusions of security, only to be blindsided when reality hits. That's not going to happen to me, and it doesn't have to happen to you if you start now. After shifting my mindset, I realized awareness alone wasn't enough. Survival requires autonomy, freedom from the systems that are collapsing around us. I began creating a life designed to function even when traditional society fails. Independence isn't luxury, it's necessity. And it starts with practical, deliberate steps you can take today. First, lifestyle matters. I reduced dependence on centralized services, banks, corporations, and unstable supply chains. I cultivate resources I control directly, from food storage to energy options, to ensure that if systems fail, I can sustain myself. I organize my living situation to maximize efficiency, resilience, and mobility. Every choice I make is guided by foresight, not convenience. Skills are equally critical. I've invested in abilities that allow me to thrive independently: digital literacy, coding, financial strategy, basic survival skills, and networking. I've seen people over-rely on a single skill or career, and when that crumbles, they collapse too. I've deliberately diversified my knowledge to remain flexible and capable no matter the scenario. Skills are assets just like money. They can't be taken away if you maintain them. Community also plays a role. I connect with people who share preparedness, foresight, and independence. I've learned that relying solely on isolation is risky, but building networks with trustworthy, proactive individuals creates resilience. Communities of awareness provide support, information, and shared resources when challenges arise. I actively cultivate these networks, ensuring that autonomy doesn't mean loneliness, it means strategic collaboration. Digital knowledge is another pillar. I protect my information, my communication, and my wealth in ways that the collapsing system cannot control. Understanding decentralized finance, secure communications, and online resource networks gives me leverage that others lack. The digital world is both a threat and an opportunity. Those who understand it can secure autonomy like never before. The key is foresight and consistent action. I plan for multiple scenarios, test contingencies, and adapt strategies as conditions change. Autonomy isn't built overnight. It's the result of daily, intentional work. Every resource I control, every skill I develop, every network I nurture is an investment in independence. I'm telling you this because the system is collapsing and complacency is dangerous. Those who rely entirely on it are unprepared for the coming instability. But there is a path to safety, resilience, and freedom. By focusing on lifestyle, skills, community, and digital autonomy, I've built a life that can withstand crises that would devastate others. If you take nothing else from this, remember this: autonomy is your shield. It's not about fear, it's about preparation, foresight, and action. I've made these choices for myself, and I see the difference every day. I'm ready for the collapse, and you can be too, if you start now. Waiting is the same as surrendering to the chaos that's coming. I've spent years observing patterns that most people completely miss, and the truth is terrifying. The warning signs of collapse are everywhere, yet they go unnoticed until it's too late. I see them in subtle shifts, in the things people casually dismiss, in the small cracks that eventually become chasms. Most people wait for headlines, for disasters to announce themselves, but by then, the system is already well into collapse. I've learned to read the signs before the rest of the world even realizes they exist. The first sign is instability, disguised as normalcy. I've noticed companies that were once pillars suddenly cutting corners, governments borrowing endlessly, and currencies behaving erratically. People shrug and say, "It's just temporary." I've learned the hard way that temporary is a lie. A system under stress doesn't recover smoothly. It breaks quietly, then suddenly, and those who ignored the warnings are left powerless. Another signal is the erosion of trust. I've watched communities, institutions, and even friendships strain under financial and social pressure. Corruption becomes normalized, accountability disappears, and people blindly follow authorities without question. These are early indicators that the structure everyone relies on is weakening. I've seen it personally when a local government mismanaged resources, leaving entire neighborhoods without essential services. Many shrugged it off, believing someone else would handle it. I didn't, and that awareness made all the difference. Debt and dependency are huge warning signs. I've studied families, businesses, and even governments trapped in cycles of borrowing they cannot repay. It's silent, invisible to most, but it's a ticking time bomb. I've witnessed people completely destroyed by financial dependency they assumed was secure. One friend's small business collapsed because he relied on a single client and a bank line of credit that disappeared overnight. He didn't see it coming until the walls had already fallen. I've also learned to watch the psychological cues: denial, overconfidence, distraction. Most people avoid noticing these signals because they're uncomfortable. I've caught myself doing it too, dismissing patterns I didn't want to face. But the truth is, discomfort is a sign to pay attention. The system doesn't announce failure politely. It whispers, and if you're awake, you can hear it. This is why urgency is everything. Ignoring warning signs isn't just ignorance, it's a death sentence in a collapsing system. I've seen too many people paralyzed by disbelief, only to suffer preventable consequences when the inevitable comes. I act because I notice, I prepare because I anticipate, and I survive because I refuse to wait for collapse to hit before I move. If you take nothing else from this, understand this. The world is sending signals every day, but most are too distracted to see them. Start noticing, start preparing, and start acting. The signs won't wait, and neither should you. I can't just warn you. I have to show you what action looks like. Awareness without action is useless, and I've learned that survival depends on deliberate steps every single day. Here's what I'm doing, and what you need to start doing if you want to navigate the collapse rather than be crushed by it. First, mindset. I start each day with clarity and purpose. I analyze trends, study markets, and observe societal patterns with ruthless honesty. I refuse comfort in denial or hope in wishful thinking. I accept the reality of a fragile system, and I use that awareness as fuel for action. This mental discipline allows me to act before crises hit, rather than react after it's too late. Second, finances. I've diversified everything I can control. I hold tangible assets, gold, land, and other resources that can't be taken by collapsing banks or government policies. I've invested in digital assets that provide flexibility and autonomy. I maintain multiple streams of income, some independent of traditional systems entirely. I constantly reassess risk and make adjustments, ensuring I'm not caught off guard when markets or institutions fail. Third, lifestyle. I've designed my life for autonomy. I reduce dependency on centralized systems, prepare for self-sufficiency in essentials, and continually build skills that allow me to survive and thrive independently. I cultivate networks of trusted people who share my approach, creating redundancy and resilience. I don't wait for permission to protect myself. I take proactive control over my environment, resources, and decisions. I also take personal security seriously, both digitally and physically. I safeguard my data, communication, and assets. I understand the systems I rely on, and I maintain contingency plans. I've learned that freedom isn't granted. It's earned through preparation, foresight, and action. Every precaution I take, every strategy I implement, is designed to preserve my autonomy in a collapsing world. I'm sharing this because preparation isn't optional. The system is collapsing, and only those who take deliberate action will survive and thrive. Complacency is the enemy. Waiting for others to act, hoping the collapse will pass you by, trusting that someone else will protect you. These are the choices that lead to ruin. I refuse them. I act, I prepare, and I stay vigilant. If you follow even a fraction of these steps, adopting awareness, securing assets, building skills, and cultivating autonomy, you position yourself to survive while others panic. I've lived through crises, observed patterns, and implemented strategies that give me a real chance in a chaotic world. It's not fear, it's clarity. It's not paranoia, it's preparedness. The system is collapsing, the cracks are everywhere, and most people don't see them. But those who wake up, those who act, those who refuse to be passive, they can survive, they can thrive. I'm doing it every day, and if you start today, you can too.